95% of empaths are destroying themselves with their own gifts. Not because they're too sensitive, because no one ever taught them how their equipment works. For a century, psychiatry looked at people who could feel what others feel, who could walk into a room and read the emotional weather without a word being spoken, who could detect lies before the sentence finished, and they diagnosed it as a disorder, a boundary problem, weakness that needed medication. Carl Jung saw the opposite. While his colleagues were pathologizing empaths, Jung studied them the way a biologist studies deep-sea creatures with sonar, not as broken people, as people carrying equipment others don't have. What he found changes everything. Empaths have genuine neurological differences. Their brains process emotional data through pathways most people don't have active. They're not imagining things. They're not being dramatic. They're perceiving a layer of reality that stays invisible to almost everyone else. But here's what no one mentions. Jung also found that almost every empath he studied was using these abilities backwards. Not just wrong, destructively wrong. Wielding powerful perceptual tools in ways that were wrecking their health, their relationships, and their sense of self. Piece by piece. The problem was never sensitivity. The problem was no one showed them how their own biology worked. In the next few minutes, I'll show you the 6 abilities Jung identified in empaths, the exact mistake almost everyone makes with each one, and the specific practice he created to turn each ability from a wound into a weapon. If you've ever felt drained after being around people and couldn't explain why, if you've ever known something was wrong before anyone said it, if you've seen through someone's mask and then doubted yourself for seeing it, what I'm about to explain will finally make sense of things you've probably been told aren't real. They're real. Jung proved it. Let's start with the first ability, the one that usually shows up in childhood as a survival mechanism. Jung called it emotional field perception. Picture a child growing up in an unstable household. Maybe the father drinks. Maybe the mother has unpredictable moods. Maybe the tension between parents shifts without warning from cold silence to explosive conflict. That child learned something most children never need to learn. They learn to read the room before they enter it. They develop the ability to sense emotional atmospheres the way other people sense temperature changes. They walk through a door and they know, before anyone speaks, before anyone moves, what the emotional weather is. Maybe it was an unstable parent. Maybe it was a school where social dynamics shifted like weather. Maybe you don't even remember when it started. But somewhere along the way, your nervous system learned to scan for what no one was saying out loud. This isn't metaphor. Jung documented empaths who could walk into an empty room and feel the residue of a fight that ended hours ago. Their nervous systems were tuned to frequencies most people's biology filters out completely. Here's the problem. Here's why this gift becomes a curse. The untrained empath doesn't just perceive the emotional field. They absorb it. They walk into a room where someone is carrying unexpressed rage. They feel that rage rise in their own body. And because they feel it in their body, they make a fatal assumption. They assume it's theirs. They think, I'm angry. Why am I angry? What's wrong with me? They walk into a family gathering where someone is secretly depressed. They feel the depression settle into their chest, and they spend the next 3 days wondering why they can't shake this sadness that came from nowhere. This is why empaths are constantly exhausted. They're not tired from their own emotional lives. They're tired from living everyone else's emotional lives simultaneously, without realizing they're doing it. Jung's correction was elegantly simple. He taught empaths to use their perception the way humans use vision. When you see a tree, you don't become the tree. When you see fire, You don't burst into flames. You perceive the external reality while maintaining your internal separation from it. The practice he developed was called the pause. Before you assume any emotion is yours, stop. Ask one question. Did this feeling exist before I encountered this person? Before I entered this space?
Indeed.
If the answer is no, if the feeling appeared at the moment of contact, you're perceiving something external. You don't need to process it. You don't need to understand it.
The glory of Rome truly knows
it.
no bounds, does it?
You witnessed
It is
it.
breathtaking.
That's all.
The Emperor's vision.
Jung had a
realized in
patient who
marble.
worked as a nurse. Every day she came home depleted, emotionally wrecked, and convinced she was developing depression.
The
Through
gods do not
analysis,
favor this war.
Jung discovered she was absorbing the emotional states of every patient she
cannot ignore
encountered.
their cries for expansion.
Dozens of people's fear, pain, and grief flowing into her nervous system and settling there because she never questioned whether those feelings belonged to her.
The
He taught
Emperor's
her
latest
the
decree
pause.
is troubling.
Within weeks,
Indeed,
her
if the people
depression
learn the
vanished.
truth, they will
The
Not
legions
because
in Gaul
anything
require
external
more
changed,
funding, Senator.
because she stopped
And neglect
carrying
the
weight
needs of the
that was
city.
never hers to carry.
People are restless.
This is the first transformation, from
The Emperor's
sponge
latest decree
to observer.
is troubling.
But once you
Indeed,
stop
if the
absorbing
people
the
learn the
general
truth, they will-
emotional field, something interesting happens. Your perception sharpens. You gain clarity to read individuals
The
with an
legions in
accuracy
Gaul
that feels
require more
almost
funding,
dangerous.
Senator.
Which
And
brings
neglect
us to
the
the
needs
second
of the
ability.
city.
Jung documented
people are
something in
restless.
empaths
The gods
that
do
modern
not favor this
neuroscience
war.
has only recently
Perhaps,
begun to
But the
understand.
people demand it.
Their brains
cannot ignore
process
their
social
cries for
information
expansion.
at
The
speeds that
legions in Gaul
bypass
require
conscious
more
awareness
funding,
entirely.
Senator.
And neglect
When an
the
empath
needs of
meets
the city.
someone new, something
people are
happens in
restless.
milliseconds. Their nervous system collects data most people never register. The micro-tension around the eyes, the slightly too
The
quick
glory of
smile,
Rome truly
the
knows no
mismatch
bounds,
between
does it?
vocal
It
tone
is
and
breathtaking.
word choice,
The
the way
Emperor's
someone's body
vision
angles away while
realized
their
in
words
marble.
move toward. All of this data floods into the empath's processing system, and their brain, working faster than conscious thought,
The gods do not
assembles
favor
it into
this war.
something Jung
Perhaps,
called a
but the
pattern
people demand
signature.
it. We cannot ignore
Within
their
minutes of
cries for
meeting someone,
expansion.
often within seconds, the empath knows things about that person they have no logical right to know. They sense danger before danger reveals itself.
The
They
Emperor's
detect
latest
deception
decree
before
is
lies are
troubling.
spoken.
Indeed,
They
if
feel
the people learn
wrongness
the
in
truth,
someone
they
who
will-
The
presents
legions in
nothing but
Gaul
rightness.
require more funding,
This is
Senator.
not mysticism.
And neglect the needs
This
of
is
the
advanced
city.
biological computation
people are
running on
restless.
hardware most people don't possess. Here's where it goes
The
wrong.
Emperor's latest
The
decree
empath perceives
is
the
troubling.
danger. Their entire
Indeed, if
nervous
the people
system
learn the
activates.
truth, they will-
Warning signals fire. And then something else happens. Social conditioning kicks in. Voices they've
The
internalized
legions
over a
in Gaul
lifetime
require
begin to
more
speak.
funding, Senator.
Good people
And
don't
neglect the
judge.
needs of the
Everyone
city.
deserves a chance.
The people are restless.
You're being paranoid.
The gods do
You're
not
being
favor
negative.
this war.
Perhaps.
You don't even know this
The people
person.
demand it.
How can you
We
possibly
cannot
know
ignore their
something is
cries
wrong?
for expansion.
And the
The
empath
legions
makes a
in Gaul
choice that will
require more
cost them
funding,
dearly.
Senator.
They
And
choose
neglect the
politeness
needs of the
over
city.
perception. So
The
they
people are
choose social
restless.
acceptability over their own survival data. They override their internal alarm system because they've been taught that trusting their own knowing is somehow unkind.
The Emperor's latest decree
Jung watched
is
this
troubling.
pattern destroy empaths
if the people
over
learn the
and
truth,
over
they will-
again.
The gods do not
The
favor
woman who
this
felt
war.
something predatory in a charming
people
man
demand it.
and talked
We
herself
cannot
out of
ignore
it,
their
who
cries for
married him,
expansion.
who endured years of psychological abuse while wondering why she hadn't seen it coming. She had seen it coming in the first 5 minutes. She had just been trained to distrust her own seeing. Jung's correction was absolute. When your system signals danger, believe it immediately. You don't need evidence that would hold up in court. You don't need to justify yourself to anyone. You don't need to be cruel or make speeches or explain yourself. You simply need to create distance. Quietly, bow calmly. Based on data your nervous system has already processed, even if your conscious mind hasn't caught up. The empath's pattern recognition isn't a suggestion. It's surveillance equipment reporting accurate information. The only question is whether you'll act on the intelligence you're receiving. Most empaths have a trail of destroyed relationships behind them. Not because they couldn't see the red flags, because they could. And they ignored what they saw, because someone once told them that seeing clearly was the same as being judgmental. It isn't. Seeing clearly is a gift. Acting on what you see is wisdom. But the empath's perception doesn't stop at surface patterns. It goes deeper, much deeper, into territory that starts to get dark. Jung's most famous contribution to psychology was his concept of the shadow. The parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, the emotions we suppress, the impulses we deny, the wounds we bury so deep we forget they exist. Everyone has a shadow. Most people spend their entire lives pretending they don't. The empath sees it anyway. This is the third ability Jung identified. The ability to see what someone is actively trying to hide. Not just from others, from themselves. The empath looks at a successful businessman and sees the terrified child still seeking his father's approval. They look at a controlling partner and see the abandonment trauma driving every manipulation. They look at a smiling friend and see the depression that smile is working so hard to conceal. They see through masks. They perceive past performances. They detect the fault lines in people's psychological architecture. And this is where empaths make their most devastating mistake. They see the wounded child inside the abusive adult, and they decide their job is to heal that child. They enter relationships with people who hurt them, and they stay. Not because they don't see the damage, because they see it too clearly. They see the trauma underneath. They understand why this person became this way. And that understanding creates compassion, and that compassion becomes a trap. Jung called this the savior complex, the belief that seeing someone's wound obligates you to heal it. That understanding someone's pain requires you to absorb it. That perceiving someone's brokenness means you were put on Earth to fix them. This belief has destroyed more empaths than any other single pattern. The empath stays with the narcissist because they can see the hurt little boy inside him. They stay with the addict because they can feel the emptiness she's trying to fill. They pour years of their life into people who cannot receive what they're offering because the ability to see damage triggered a compulsion to repair it. Jung's correction was harsh, necessarily so. Understanding why someone is dangerous does not make them safe. Seeing someone's shadow does not give you permission to enter it. Perceiving someone's wound does not make their healing your responsibility. Shadow detection is a protective ability. It exists to show you what you're dealing with, not to mandate that you deal with it. The empath who sees that a new friend carries unresolved rage doesn't need to process that rage with them. They need to note the information and make choices accordingly. The empath who perceives that a potential partner has deep attachment wounds doesn't need to become their therapist. They need to recognize that those wounds will eventually be directed at them. Jung taught empaths what he called compassionate discernment. You can feel genuine compassion for someone suffering from a safe distance. You can understand someone completely and still choose to have nothing to do with them. You can see clearly and still protect yourself. Compassion doesn't require proximity. Understanding doesn't require sacrifice. Empathy doesn't mean you have to bleed. Once the empath stops trying to save everyone they can see through, something shifts. Their perception becomes even sharper. Clear enough to see where things are going
Esteemed colleagues,
before they
the
get
treasury
there.
is bare.
This
We
ability
cannot afford
unsettles
this
people
war.
when I
And
describe
yet,
it,
we cannot
because
afford
it sounds
peace
like
under these
fortune-telling.
terms.
It
The
isn't.
Duke's proposal threatens
Jung
the
called it
stability of the entire
trajectory
region.
perception.
We
The
cannot
empath's
afford
ability to
another
sense
war,
the
my
direction
lord.
something
cannot
is
yield
moving
on this
before
taxation.
it arrives at its destination. Think of it this
Order,
way.
gentlemen, we must
A regular
maintain
person
order.
sees a relationship in its current state. An empath feels the subtle shifts of energy, the micro movements in emotional temperature, the barely detectable changes in pattern. and extrapolates forward. They know in month 3 what will happen in month 12. They sense in the first year of a friendship where it will be in 10 years. They feel the arc of things before the arc completes. This isn't prophecy. It's pattern recognition working across time instead of just across data points. The empath's nervous system processes trajectory the way a physicist calculates the path of a projectile. Given current forces and vectors, where will this land? The untrained empath has experiences like this constantly. They're in a new relationship. Everything looks fine on paper. The other person is saying the right things, doing the right things. And yet there's a knowing, a sense that this is already ending, a feeling that they're watching something collapse in slow motion, even though the collapse hasn't started yet. And what do they do with that knowing? They bury it. They tell themselves they're being negative. They tell themselves they're self-sabotaging. They tell themselves that good people don't predict bad outcomes. They override their trajectory perception with hope. And hope, for the empath, is one of the most dangerous drugs available. Because the empath doesn't just suffer the eventual loss. They suffer twice. They suffer the loss itself, and then they suffer the additional devastation of knowing they betrayed their own perception. They saw it coming. They felt it coming, and they gaslit themselves into staying anyway. Jung's practice here was what he called anticipatory action. Trajectory perception is not a curse. It's advance warning. It's lid time. It's the gift of knowing what's coming while there's still time to prepare. If you sense a relationship will end, you don't have to end it immediately. But you can begin emotionally preparing. You can start creating practical plans. You can spend the remaining time consciously rather than in denial. If you feel a job situation deteriorating before the deterioration becomes visible, you don't have to quit tomorrow. But you can update your resume. You can strengthen other connections. You can position yourself so the eventual collapse doesn't destroy you. The empath's trajectory perception isn't meant to generate despair. It's meant to generate strategy. See clearly. Act accordingly. Use the advanced knowledge to navigate, not to suffer preemptively. But acting requires energy. And to have energy, the empath must master something Jung considered one of the most powerful and most dangerous aspects of their biological equipment. There's a phenomenon that occurs between mother and infant that scientists still don't fully understand. The baby's nervous system, which is not yet capable of regulating itself, synchronizes with the mother's nervous system. When the mother is calm, the baby calms. When the mother is distressed, the baby becomes distressed. Their two biological systems temporarily operate as one. This is resonance, the ability of one nervous system to attune to another so completely that they begin to mirror each other. For most people, this ability diminishes in adulthood. It becomes selective. It activates only with intimate partners, close family, perhaps a few
keep it that
deep
way
friends.
until the banquet.
For empaths, it never turns off. The empath's nervous system resonates with everyone. The cashier at the grocery store, the stranger on the subway, the co-worker 3 cubicles away. Their biology is constantly synchronizing with whatever emotional frequency is present in their environment.
Near the south gate.
This is why empaths feel inexplicably depleted after being in crowds.
The
It's not
shipment arrives tomorrow
introversion.
night.
It's
near the
not
south
social
gate.
anxiety.
See that
It's
it is
that they've
delivered to the
literally
Duke.
tuned
And the
their
payment.
nervous system to
It is
match
handled.
dozens or
We must
hundreds of
discuss
different
the Duke's
frequencies
proposal before
in a
the
single
council
day.
meets.
Each synchronization requires energy. Each attunement
The treaty
costs
is already
something.
signed.
And
but they
here's
do
the
not
real
know.
problem.
Good, keep it
When
that
you
way
spend
until
an
the banquet.
entire day resonating with everyone else's frequency, you lose your own. The empath comes home and doesn't know what they feel anymore. They've processed so many emotional states that their own baseline has vanished. They don't know if they're tired, or just carrying someone else's fatigue. They don't know if they're sad or just still resonating with a stranger's grief from 6 hours ago. This is why so many empaths feel like they don't have a self, not because they lack identity, because their resonance ability keeps overriding their identity with everyone else's frequencies. Jung's correction involved making conscious what had been automatic. Resonance should be a choice, a tool you deploy deliberately in moments when deep connection is actually wanted. When you're supporting a friend through crisis, when you're bonding with your child, when you're entering therapeutic presence with someone who needs to feel truly met. Outside of those chosen moments, resonance should be turned off. Jung taught a practice called conscious return. At the end of any interaction, especially with people who were emotionally activated, you pause, you breathe, you physically shake your body, the way an animal shakes off stress after a near miss with a predator. And you say internally, that was theirs, this is me. You return to your own frequency. You reset to your own baseline. You disentangle your nervous system from whatever it had temporarily connected to. This isn't cold. It isn't unloving. It's the only way an empath can maintain a self while being capable of deep connection. Resonate by choice. Return by practice. One of Jung's patients described her change this way. She said, I used to feel like a radio that was always scanning, picking up every station at once until all I heard was static. Now I control the dial. I tune in when I want to. I tune out when I need to. And for the first time in my life, I can hear my own signal. Mastering resonance makes something else possible. Something Jung considered the pinnacle of empathic development. Here's where it gets strange. Jung called the sixth ability dimensional perception. And it's the reason empaths make people uncomfortable without saying a word. Most people hear what someone says. That's it. One layer. The empath hears what they say, feels what they actually mean, catches the unconscious intention underneath the conscious one, detects the lie hiding inside the truth, and the truth hiding inside the lie. All at once. All in real time. They see the whole architecture. Surface and depth and shadow and aspiration. Running in parallel. It's brutal clarity. It lets empaths understand people at levels most humans never access.
These new arches
It's also
truly
the
capture
ability
the
most
glory
likely
of
to
the
ruin
empire.
their lives if they use it
Indeed.
wrong.
The
The
craftsmanship
untrained
is
empath
divine.
with this ability becomes exhausting to be around. And they don't understand why. They see through defenses. Fine.
The
But
glory
then they
of Rome
can't stop
truly knows
themselves
no
from
bounds,
saying
does
what
it?
they
It
see.
is
They
breathtaking.
poke at
The
inconsistencies.
Emperor's vision,
They name
realized in
contradictions
marble.
people aren't ready to face. They drag shadows into the light that people have spent decades burying. And they do all of this convinced they're
The
helping.
gods do not favor
They're
this
not
war.
helping.
Perhaps
They're
the
violating.
people demand it.
Jung was
We
direct
cannot
about
ignore
this.
their cries for
Psychological
expansion.
defenses exist for a reason. They're not stupidity. They're not weakness. They're protection. They let the psyche function until it's ready to go deeper.
The
The
Emperor's
empath who
latest
rips
decree
down someone's
is
walls
troubling.
without invitation
Indeed,
isn't
if the people learn
enlightening
the
them.
truth, they will
The
They're
legions
causing
in Gaul
damage.
require more
And
funding,
then wondering
Senator.
why everyone
and
pulls
neglect the
away.
needs of the city.
Jung's final practice for the
people are
developed
restless.
empath was what he called silent wisdom.
The Emperor's
See
latest
everything.
decree is troubling.
Say almost nothing.
Indeed, if
Your
the people learn
perception
the
is for
truth,
you.
they will
It's for your navigation. It's for your protection. It's for your understanding of the landscape you're moving through. It
The
is not a
legions in
mandate
Gaul
to
require
announce what
more
you see.
funding, Senator.
It is not
And
permission
neglect
to
the needs
correct
of the
everyone
city.
else's unconsciousness.
People are restless.
It is not a calling
gods
to
do
rip
not
away
favor this
masks
war.
that people need
Perhaps,
to wear.
but the
You
people
can see that
demand
your
it.
brother is
We cannot
repeating
ignore their
patterns that will
cries for
destroy his
expansion.
marriage.
The legions in
You don't
Gaul
need to
require
tell him.
more funding,
He's
Senator.
not ready to
And
hear it.
neglect the needs
Your
of the
telling
city.
won't help. He needs to
people
find
are
it himself.
restless.
You can perceive that your friend's new business partner is going to betray her. Maybe you say something once, gently, but you don't become the prophet of doom,
The Emperor's
constantly
latest decree
pointing at what you
is
see.
troubling.
She has her
Indeed,
own
if the
journey,
people learn the
her
truth,
own timing,
The gods do not
her own
favor
lessons
this
that
war.
only experience can
But
teach.
the people demand it.
The highest form of
We cannot
empathic
ignore their
mastery is
cries for
restraint.
expansion.
Not because seeing is wrong, because wisdom knows that sight without invitation is violence, that truth forced on the unready destroys rather than heals, that the empath's gift is for silent navigation, not loud correction. Jung's patients who reached this level described a quiet they'd never known. They still saw everything.
wrath is
They
upon
still
us.
felt everything. But they stopped needing everyone else to see what they saw.
God save us from this
They became
tempest.
what Jung called anchored perceivers, present in the world, aware of depths others couldn't access, and utterly undamaged by that awareness, because they had learned the final lesson. For most of his career, Jung watched empaths destroy themselves with their own gifts, absorbing what wasn't theirs, ignoring their own alarms, saving people who would only wound them, overriding their knowing with hope, resonating until they vanished, on seeing everything and saying too much. 6 abilities, 6 ways to self-destruct. Every one of these patterns is the same mistake at a different level. The empath confusing their perception with a requirement to act on it in ways that serve everyone except themselves. The abilities were never meant to make you the healer of the world. They were meant to help you navigate it. They weren't given so you could carry everyone's pain. They were given so you could perceive clearly enough to avoid unnecessary pain of your own. They aren't tools for saving others. They're tools for understanding reality at depths most people will never access. The trained empath, the one who has learned to use these abilities correctly, doesn't look anything like the cultural stereotype. They're not the exhausted, boundaryless, and endlessly giving person who burns themselves to warm others. They're discerning, selective, powerful in a quiet way that most people can't identify, but everyone can feel. They walk into rooms and they know things. They meet people and they see things. They feel trajectories and trust what they feel. They resonate by choice. They return to themselves on purpose. They see everything and say only what serves. They are not victims of their sensitivity. They are masters of it. Jung believed that empaths were evolutionary scouts, human beings carrying advanced perceptual equipment that most of the species hasn't developed yet. Their job wasn't to suffer for their abilities. Their job was to learn to use them. And if you're watching this, if something in you recognized itself in these descriptions, you have the same choice. Keep absorbing, ignoring, saving, hoping, resonating without control, exposing without wisdom. Keep using ancient biological gifts in the exact ways that guarantee your destruction. Or learn to use them correctly, not to serve everyone else, to navigate your own life with the clarity that has always been available to you. The sensitivity isn't the problem. It never was. The problem was that no one taught you how your own equipment works. Now you know. If you're ready to go deeper into this work, to actually practice the techniques Jung developed for empaths, I've created a guide called True Self-Discovery. It contains 24 exercises based directly on Jung's methods for turning sensitivity from a wound into power. The link is in the description. And if this video gave you language for experiences you've never been able to explain, I'd share it with someone who needs to hear it. There are empaths everywhere who are drowning in their gifts. They just need someone to show them they can swim. Subscribe if you want more Jungian psychology, applied to the realities of actually being alive. The next video goes even deeper into how empaths can protect their energy without becoming cold. Your perception is real. Your gifts are real. The only question now is what you'll do with them.